Greetings. If you're watching this, it's probably because you're interested in the Great World Religions course from the Great Courses. I am going through lecture by lecture and just kind of, summarizing my notes in video form. I'm not attempting to replace the course. If anything, I hope to wet your whistle and make you want to go watch the course for yourself. So let's leap into lecture 3 here. So lecture 3 is about Muhammad and his sort of role as a prophet and statesman for early Islam, rather. So before Islam came along, the professor describes the Middle East as a pretty rough place. You've got the Byzantine Empire and the Persians just warring the crap out of each other. Meanwhile, the Arabs themselves are sort of a very polytheistic tribal society. They're constantly waging sort of skirmishy wars on each other and raiding each other for material possessions back and forth. Not a whole lot of sort of widespread intentional bloodshed, but not a lot of happy times either. So at the time, as I said, the religion was very polytheistic, pretty much what you'd expect from a polytheistic religion. You've got sacred objects, idols, lots of local gods. But the interesting thing to me was that even before the advent of Islam, the idea of the pilgrimage to Mecca was already a thing. They were doing that before Islam even came along, in up to and including the Kaaba, the I guess, for lack of a better word, the cube that is sort of the center of veneration. Since they were a polytheistic society, though, the cube was filled with idols, each representing a day of the year. So it's a much different. Islam, as one of its tenets, is very much against idolatry, and because of the previous origins for religion in the area, you can kind of see why they pushed in the opposite direction. So in addition, there were Christians and Jews living in the area at the time, and though the lecture doesn't go into a great deal of detail, it's not apparently open warfare, so that's at least a positive thing. So Muhammad himself was born about 570 and died in 630. He was an orphan, grew up managing caravans, so he was a working class stiff, just like Christ. So not an extra special guy, just a guy off the street. That was until 610 when the angel Gabriel came to him and basically tried to reveal the word of God to him. As is typically the case in situations like this, at first Muhammad wasn't 100% convinced, and is also, as typical, it took him till the third time to actually, decide. All right, so maybe this is an angel. I should pay attention to what's going on here. Even after that, he still didn't believe what was going on, so he goes home to his wife, and she's his first ardent supporter. So many consider his wife to be the first Muslim convert, because she believed him when even he didn't believe him. So for 22 years, Muhammad continued to receive the revelations of God. Those revelations were recorded orally for that period of time, and then later set down in text as the Quran. So the Quran is said to be the verbatim words of the prophet. That there's no deviation whatsoever from the actual intent and the words given by God. So much like in the Christian religion, they say that God looks after His word and makes sure it's uncorrupted. Sort of the same thing with the Quran. Muhammad wasn't a terribly popular person, because at the time, as you remember, there was a lot of idolatry going on, polytheistic religion, and Muhammad's message from God was, there's one God. Give all those other guys, give them the boot, get rid of those idols. That's ridiculous. And, oh, by the way, you know how you have this pilgrimage, people from all the tribes come to Mecca and you make a lot of money off them? That's not cool either. So you need to cut that crap out. As you might surmise, the people who were making a lot of money off those pilgrimages weren't too happy about that concept. So they were pretty much like get out of here. We've got a good thing going, and you're not going to mess with it. So the lecture is somewhat scanty on the details here, but basically they starved Muhammad and his people out, and he was forced to leave the city, but not before what is referred to as I lost my place in the text. I think it's called the night. How is it not in the text? It's got to be in there somewhere. Anyway, so before he can leave, he's sleeping near the Kaaba, and the angel Gabriel comes to him again and has a magical steed and says, come with me. I wish to reveal to you, the rightness of God. So they travel to Jerusalem. They visit the Temple Mount, and then onward to heaven itself, where Muhammad meets with all the previous prophets, Moses, Noah. Jesus isn't mentioned, but one can assume, and Allah himself. And there, that is where much of the Muslim faith is sort of laid down, is in that night of revelation to Muhammad. There it is, the night journey, and it occurred in 1621. So, removed from Mecca, Muhammad finds himself invited to Medina to act as sort of an arbiter of a dispute, as the lecturer describes it. He is in fact so effective that he ends up basically ruling the place, and Medina becomes the first true Muslim community. After they've established themselves, Muhammad begins to go into a process of sort of getting back at his old Meccan enemies, and so a series of battles. Most famously, 1624, the Battle of Badr. The Muslims rout the Meccans. The longer war continues. There's some back and forth until 627, the Battle of the Ditch, and long story short, they kind of beat themselves into a stalemate, as I understood what the lecturer had to say. So they come to an uneasy truce for a while. Jews, Christians, Muslims, and Meccans all sort of living together in this sort of uneasy truce until, again, the lecturer isn't terribly specific about this, but until some neighbors skirmishes end up escalating into the point of complete war, and then in 630, Muhammad manages to take out Mecca entirely. And also, as the lecturer describes, Muhammad is pretty magnanimous about this whole thing. Okay, so I've defeated you. Come be a Muslim. You got to adopt my ways, though. So one of the things he did, he went in and purified the Kaaba of all of its idols, and got rid of all the polytheistic trappings in Mecca, and just sort of generally cleaned things up. So from there, it seems to have been all downhill. By 632, at the Prophet's death, the Arabian Peninsula is united into the Muslim faith and has entered Islamic law. This is probably a vast oversimplification, because we managed to cover the entire creation of Islam in the manner of half an hour, or in this case, in my synopsis, an even shorter 8 minutes and 43 seconds. But that's the general idea. So the key points that were interesting to me was the fact that a lot of this existed. We look at Islam and most religions as, sort of, okay, so Christians came in or Muslims came in and they formed these processes and these traditions, but not really. A lot of it is adaptation to the background culture at the time. Very much the same way in Islam. Of course, Muhammad, I guess as he would say, cleaned things up, but he sort of adapted the teachings that he'd been given by Allah to the context of the time, so they would be more acceptable to the people there, and thus was founded an incredibly successful religion. So, at any rate, that's the end of chapter 3. I am sure that I have oversimplified, probably made some completely heinous error at some point during this. If you wish to correct me, then you're certainly welcome to. Just do it politely and understand that I am a mere novice of this and trying to learn about this particular topic as much as you probably are. So, I welcome your feedback, and until next time, happy reading.